Have you ever just, glanced across a room and instantly recognized a friend? It feels effortless, right? Almost like magic. Well, this is the story of a 50-year quest to teach machines that exact same magic. Welcome to our three-part series on how computers finally learned to see. In this first episode, we're going back to the beginning, to the long dark, the decades of failure and frustration that came before that big breakthrough.
So, let's kick things off with a paradox that honestly baffled scientists for decades. A toddler can look at the family pet and say doggy. It's a simple act of recognition they do without even thinking. And yet, for more than 50 years, that same simple task was completely and utterly impossible for the most powerful supercomputers on the planet. How is that possible?
Well, this is something called Moravec's paradox. It's this bizarre observation that things humans find really hard, like, say, complex calculus or mastering chess, are actually pretty straightforward for computers. But the things we do effortlessly, the things that feel intuitive like walking, picking something up, or just seeing, those are monumentally difficult for a machine. You see, the early pioneers in AI catastrophically underestimated how complex vision is, precisely because it's so easy for us, and they were about to learn that lesson the hard way.
Okay, so to really get why this was such a struggle, we have to first wrap our heads around the core problem, what I like to call the seeing paradox. When you look at a coffee mug, your brain doesn't just see a shape. It sees meaning. It understands its purpose, what it's made of, its three-dimensional form. A computer, it sees none of that. To a machine, an image is just a giant, chaotic grid of numbers. Each number just represents the brightness of a single pixel.
And we're talking about a lot of numbers. For just one, pretty small image, you're looking at over 150,000 integers. There's no concept of handle, or ceramic, or hot coffee in there. It's just a raw, meaningless stream of data that has zero connection to the real world.
And this enormous chasm, this gap between the raw pixel numbers a computer gets and the rich meaning that we humans perceive, that's called the semantic gap. And bridging this gap, that is the central problem of computer vision. It's the puzzle that researchers would spend the next half-century trying, and for the most part, failing to solve.
And this problem gets exponentially harder because the real world is just messy. I mean, think about it. A tiny change in lighting, or the angle you're looking from, or how far away you are, all of that creates a completely different set of numbers for the computer. To a machine, a red apple in bright sunlight is numerically a totally different thing than that same apple in a shadow. So for a computer to truly see, it has to learn that an object is still the same object, no matter what. It has to achieve something called invariance.
So, with this impossible puzzle in front of them, how did the early pioneers try to solve it? Well, they approached it like a logic problem. They figured they could just write down all the rules for what an object looks like.
You have to love the optimism. It was perfectly captured back in 1966 by the MIT's Summer Vision Project. Seriously, the plan was to hire a few students for the summer and have them basically solve computer vision in a few months. They thought they could just break it down into simple steps. Find the edges, group the shapes, and poof, you recognize the object. Easy, right?
Oh, it failed. It failed spectacularly. They immediately slammed into this frustrating circular problem. To tell the computer how to separate an object from its background, it turned out the computer already needed to know what the object was. They couldn't solve step one without already having solved the whole puzzle. Vision wasn't a simple, logical list of steps after all.
So this huge failure pushed the entire field into a long era of what's called feature engineering. The idea was, okay, we can't solve all of vision at once, so let's get really specific. Brilliant engineers would spend their entire careers handcrafting these complex algorithms to find tiny visual patterns, like an edge, or a corner, or a specific texture. But all of these systems were caught in the same fundamental trap. They were brittle.
Now, the absolute peak of this entire approach was the Viola-Jones face detector back in 2001. If you had a digital camera in the early 2000s that put that little yellow box around people's faces, yeah, you were seeing this thing in action. It was genius, really. It didn't try to understand what a face is. It just ran through a lightning-fast checklist of super simple rules about light and dark patterns. Like, is the eye region generally darker than the upper cheeks? Check. Is the bridge of the nose brighter than the sides? Check. And on it went.
It was a true triumph of engineering, for sure. But it was also just a very rigid template. The second the real world didn't perfectly match its pre-programmed rules, the whole system would just break. Turn your head a little? The rules about eye and cheek contrast don't apply anymore. Fail. Change the lighting? The rules about the nose bridge are useless. Fail. They were trying to write a specific rule for every single possible way a face could appear in the world, which is, of course, an infinite and totally impossible task.
And this brittleness led to this really shocking discovery when researchers started creating these big datasets to test their models on. They'd build an algorithm that got, say, 90% accuracy on the fish category, and they'd get all excited and publish a paper. But then somebody finally asked the most important question: what is the algorithm actually looking at to make its decision?
The answer was kind of horrifying. The algorithm wasn't seeing fins, it wasn't seeing scales or fish eyes. Nope. It turned out that in that particular dataset, pretty much every single picture of a fish was in the water. The algorithm had just learned to recognize the blue, wavy texture of water. It wasn't a fish detector, it was a water detector. We hadn't taught the machines to see at all. We had just taught them how to cheat by finding weird shortcuts in our flawed data.
Now, while all of this was going on, there was this small kind of sideline group of researchers who were exploring a completely different idea. Instead of writing rules, they were trying to build systems inspired by the brain itself, artificial neural networks. But for decades, this path also looked like a dead end.
These early neural nets, they showed so much promise, but they kept failing to take off because of what you could call a triad of failure. First, they were incredibly data hungry, and the huge data sets they needed just didn't exist yet. Second, the computers of the 90s were just way too slow to train them. And third, there was this tricky technical problem called the vanishing gradient, where the learning signal would just fade away as it went deeper into the network. It's like a game of telephone, where the message gets completely garbled by the end. The networks just stopped learning.
And then, in 2006, a researcher named Fei-Fei Li came along with this radical, almost heretical idea. See, for decades, everyone was obsessed with building cleverer and cleverer algorithms. But she started to wonder, what if the problem wasn't the algorithms at all? What if the problem was the tiny, biased, frankly pathetic data sets we were using as their training ground?
So her team undertook this absolutely monumental effort to build ImageNet, a massive, unprecedented dataset with 14 million cleanly labeled images that actually reflected the chaos and variety of the real visual world. And to drive progress, they started an annual competition. But for those first 2 years, the results were just deeply, deeply disappointing.
In 2010 and 2011, the best teams in the world showed up with their most advanced, handcrafted feature techniques. And the result? Well, after a full year of intense research by the smartest people in the field, the error rate improved by a measly 2.4%. They were grinding out progress in these tiny, painful, incremental steps.
The error rate just seemed to be stuck. A rate over 25% meant that even if you gave the system 5 guesses, the best vision systems on Earth were still flat out wrong more than 1 out of every 4 times. Just think about that. Would you trust a self-driving car that was wrong 1 out of every 4 times it tried to identify a pedestrian? No way.
It really felt like the entire field had slammed into a brick wall. The old ways of doing things, the handcrafted rules, had been pushed to their absolute limit, and it just wasn't good enough. It seemed like the whole quest was at a dead end. But, unknown to almost everyone, in a university lab in Toronto, a tiny team was quietly coding a revolution.
The old way had failed. All the brilliant, handcrafted rules in the world just weren't enough to crack the code of sight. A completely different way of thinking was needed. Join us next time in Part 2 as we dive into the radical architecture that didn't just nudge the error rate, it shattered it. It destroyed a 50-year-old paradigm, and finally, after a half-century of darkness, taught machines how to truly see.